Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm Kerravala from ZK Research, and I'm here at Cisco House, Promenade 87, in Davos at the World Economic Forum. I'm with Fran Katsoudas, the Chief People Purpose Policy Officer at Cisco. Fran, how you been?
Good. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a while since we caught up. We tend to see each other at events like Global Citizen, an event like this. But this isn't just like another event for Cisco, I feel like. It's really deeply tied to Cisco's mission of power and inclusive future. And so Cisco has been a fixture at WEF now for 26 years, I think.
I think 29 years.
Yeah, something like that. And so from your perspective, why is it important to have a table at this event specifically?
Well, if you think about what you see here in Davos, it's a really amazing intersection of the private sector, of government, of nonprofits, all in service of how we address some of the biggest issues in the world. And I have found that the focus on people in particular over the last 5 to 6 years has really been amplified. And so for Cisco, these conversations are incredibly important to us.
Yeah, and it's I think people look at Cisco as a trusted provider of critical infrastructure, and so you're using governments and large enterprises all over the world. Now, one of the things I've noticed about the show, I've been following it for a long time, although it's my first Davos in full disclosure, it's changed a lot, right? In the 2010s, we talked a lot about the mechanics of globalization. Then we had the fourth industrial revolution.
That's right.
A few years ago, sustainability was a big theme, although it seems to be an underlying theme here. But now we've clearly entered the AI era. There's not a session around where that doesn't come up, right?
So true.
And so looking at the agenda this week, what are the primary challenges you think that WEF's trying to address when it comes to AI?
Yeah, so I would say this year, what stands out is unlike previous years where the conversation was, it's coming, it's so much more tangible now. And I think some of the biggest challenges that we've been talking about is the intersection of AI and the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, there were so many assumptions that AI would come in and people would be significantly impacted. And I think now what you see is a bit more nuance. I think there's an understanding that there's an evolution of work. And in some cases, it's more dramatic, but in many cases, we're going to see that evolution. And so what that drives to is conversations around how do we prepare our people? How do we ensure that they have the skilling that they need? How do we ensure that AI is safe, secure, that the responsible guidelines that we need are in place as well?
Yeah, in fact, you brought up the workforce, and this whole concept of the AI-ready workforce is something that I don't think was discussed at last year's WEF, but now it's really more about making sure the people are comfortable with it. And in my conversations with delegates here, it's pretty clear, I think there's a belief now that AI is going to create more jobs than it takes. However, how we get the current workforce to have the skills that are needed in a point where we're really not sure what the end game is, right? And so when you think about that from a corporate perspective inside of Cisco, how do you evaluate whether you have the right skills and if they don't, what those skills should be?
Yeah, it's so funny because this is the conversation that I was so excited to have here and to learn from peers. I think from a Cisco perspective, what we've realized is bodies of work like the ICT consortium have been so meaningful for us because together with 8 or 9 peers, together we're studying jobs and understanding that change. I think research at this moment is incredibly important. You said this in your question, there's an element of sequencing and timing. And there may be points where things move very quickly and we have to be ready. And what that means is really understanding the skills that are most important, ensuring that we start to create this bite-sized training for our organization, and then recognizing where they are today and what they need. I think the last part of the 2 years has been all around readiness of talent and getting them to a place where they understand that the future is going to look a lot differently.
Yeah, so a big part of Davos here too is the Congress and obviously the Promenade. But it's those hallway discussions that you have.
Yes, you're so right. Yeah.
And I'm curious, through the ones you've had and the goals you had coming here, have there been any aha moments from those discussions?
So yesterday I had a panel, I was between 2 professors, one from Stanford and one from MIT. And sometimes in these conversations, I think it's just really amazing to sit and listen to some of what they're learning. And so the Stanford professor shared that at the end of every year, he takes his top 10 students out for lunch. And what he realized this year was that all but 2 are using AI, and that they're using it differently. And some of the best practices just haven't been shared. And it was just an aha that whether we're talking about education or whether we're talking about universities, we have to create these systems to learn from those that are leading. And that was just a powerful and tangible takeaway. Something that I've been thinking a lot about is our language when we talk about AI. I think we've done so much to humanize AI, and I don't think that serves us well.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to really understand the capabilities. And so whether we're talking about simulation or whether we're talking about processing power or analytics, to stop that so that we recognize the role that we have as humans to shape where we go.
Yeah, now, you brought up leadership, right,
Yeah.
as part of that, or it's implied anyways.
Yeah.
And prior to Davos, I actually reposted this on LinkedIn. You wrote a post talking about how AI success is a leadership issue,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And it was very similar to the article that I wrote on CIO.com, but same theme anyways. And I'm curious, why do you think this is the right time to change the AI discussion away from GPUs and LLMs and infrastructure to management and leadership?
Well, I think the obvious answer to that is we see all of the technology capabilities and they're changing week over week, but adoption isn't where we thought it would be. And if you just look at the AI readiness index, we've been stuck at 13%. So only 13% of companies feel like they're getting value from a AI perspective.
That's shocking, right?
It is shocking.
Yeah.
But as I talk to people in the hallways, that's what I hear. And so there's a belief that it'll come. And so to me, what's missing is really the people side of this. And what we have found at Cisco is that when leaders use AI, their teams are they use it 2 times as much as they did beforehand. And so leaders are such a big part of the equation. And it's not just the adoption, but I think there's a role for leaders to ensure that the team stays cohesive, that there's trust, that they have collaboration. And some of our early data from a Cisco perspective shows that some of our super users, their trust in team has gone down. And so that shows that we have a huge opportunity. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and so let me get that data point right. So when a leader uses AI, the usage of it in the team is twice as much.
That's right.
That's unbelievable.
You said it way better than I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I mean, it just shows the leading by example how important
That's
it
right.
is. Now, I think one of the things Cisco's always done a great job at is using themselves as a poster child for new technology. In fact, all the way back to the early days of the internet, Cisco is teaching companies how to leverage the internet. And so I know internally at Cisco, there's been a big, get on the AI train movement at Cisco, right? And I'm curious, as you've done that, what's worked? What are some of the lessons learned? And more importantly, what hasn't worked?
So I'll tell you the funniest thing that hasn't worked, because I think this is how Cisco and so many other companies have approached this. So what we have found is that when we have mandatory AI training, not only are the learnings not sustainable and leveraged, it actually has a negative impact on usage. Now, what does that mean? What has worked at Cisco is that when we give people choice and some flexibility around how they leverage AI, we've seen tremendous impact. And so as an example, in G2's engineering organization, he has made multiple AI tools available to the team. This is something that they greatly appreciate. I think it creates that environment of exploration and allows them to bring their own preference to the table. My hunch is that there will be some point that he standardizes, but at this moment, giving teams choice is really powerful. The other thing that we have seen work is just having fun. And so we had this virtual game of Clue. Do you remember Clue when we were young? Okay. Where
Mrs. Katsoudas did it in the conservatory.
Yeah. Thanks for saying I did it. Hit the wrench. But what we did was we had to use large data models to figure out who did it. And it was great. And we had 1,000 people playing. And so what you'll see is
It would probably do a pretty good job of that, actually.
we will have fun. We will give people choice. We'll make sure that we are as transparent as we can be. We do this through some of the skill stories where we show, hey, this is what a cyber analyst did in 23. Here's what they're doing in 25. So that we can just help our people understand where things are going.
The fascinating data point there, though, is that people are using it.
Yeah.
They're getting benefits.
Yeah.
But if you make them go to training, they don't want to use it.
That's right.
That's counterintuitive to what I would have thought.
I don't think so. That's so human. That's so human.
Maybe, yeah.
Right? But so it just shows us that we have to meet our people in different ways.
Yeah, and so have you been able to quantify the benefits across many of the groups? Obviously for some job functions like a developer,
Yeah.
you can see lines of code written before and after, but for some of the softer jobs.
Yes and no. So I'll give you some of the greatest examples. So in our customer experience organization, we can see that as a result of what they've been doing from an AI perspective, they're able to touch more customers because they took on a productivity increase. I think on average, our renewal team got back 5 hours per week. And so what Liz did was she said, okay, great, let's broaden the number of customers that you go to. I think that's been a great example for us. The fact that in CX, we're also managing about 1 million cases
Yes.
via AI is another proof point. It allows people to go to level 2, which I think is important. Within the engineering space, what we see, and we're looking at this week over week, we see a huge increase from a usage perspective. And now our key focus is understanding the quality element of it. And so that comes next for us.
Yeah, and is it your, I know you haven't looked at it yet, but is your gut sense the quality, is it better, not quite as good, around the same? Do you have any feel for that yet?
My sense is we probably have a bit of everything. So we have examples where it's been significant, examples where it hasn't worked, and examples where it's neutral, which means we have to figure out what we should be doing differently. And I think that that'll be the case for quite some time for us.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, you might have the hardest job at Cisco, trying to reorganize all the culture and people. And so when you think of the people side of this,
Yeah.
Again, you're working to a point in time that's unknown, to jobs that are unknown. And how are you thinking about the cultural aspect of this? Cisco's got a really strong
Yeah.
culture.
We do.
And I think if I asked you today what makes an employee successful at Cisco, you could tell me. But in the future, post AI, what does that look like?
It's learning agility.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be one of the most important things that we do. I think we're all going to have to realize that the changes that have been so natural, like our roles have always changed, but some of that change may happen a little faster.
Yeah.
And so in one of the conversations I was having yesterday with some university presidents, perhaps we do people disservice to prepare them for a role. We probably need to start to prepare them for skills, which means that as things shift, they're just going to feel a little bit more comfortable. There's a significant level of fear right now with college graduates, which is fascinating, about what work is going to look like. And from a broader Cisco perspective, I think we just need to keep focused on what's best for our customers. That has always inspired us. The fact that we want to drive growth in everything that we do, and the fact that we're going to bring transparency and try to focus on building best careers for people.
Yeah. I know in our conversations in the past too, a real hot button for you has been making sure your leaders are also good managers.
Yeah.
Because you know how people get promoted through organizations. You're the best salesperson, you become the sales leader, right? But maybe they're not a great leader of people. So I'm not saying that's the case at Cisco, but when you think about the impact, so we talked about the impact that AI can have on employees. What about for the leadership group? How are you thinking about what their skills need to be, even some of the softer skills that maybe aren't measurable, but then more importantly, the types of data that they can collect today to be able to, when they do the reviews, or maybe you do reviews more often, but just describe what the leadership structure needs to look like.
Yeah, it's funny. We just rolled out some new leadership expectations, and I'll just share a couple of them with you. So the first is our expectations of leaders are that they leverage AI, they're driving change, all in service of reinventing ourselves. And so that's part of your accountability as a Cisco leader. The other one that we've called out is you're a coach, and we want you to be a coach. And so what that means is maybe you are going to use some of the data that we have now a little differently, and you're going to be able to have those conversations, whether it's about quality, whether it's about change. I think the other thing is that leaders are going to have to get so much closer to the work, Zeus, because their ability to understand where their teams spend their time and to understand some of the potential automation that is available and to really push their teams in that direction, I think that's going to be a big part of the work as well.
Yeah, I was talking to one delegate here, and within their organization, they're trying to make the review process ongoing.
Yeah.
Instead of like once a year when it stresses everybody out, if you've got the data,
Yeah.
why not do it more often?
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you something else that we're finding at the moment, which I think is really fascinating for us, is that when we started doing talent reviews focused on AI efficiency, it's putting a spotlight on different people. And some of those people are lower in the organization. And some of those people don't have the big titles, but what we find is that they are not only learning, but they're teaching their peers. And at this moment, that is so valuable for us. And so the other thing that leaders have to understand is who on their teams, and it may not be some of the typical stars, will be leaders in this AI era. And we have to pay attention to that and then help them continue to grow as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, last question for you.
Yeah.
This event is filled with maybe the most diverse set of individuals. We have country leaders,
Yeah.
technology leaders, business leaders, and even a lot of activists here. So for that audience that is trying to figure out their AI strategy, I think based on your role as people policy and purpose, which is unique in the industry, what's one piece of advice you'd give a leader who's struggling to get their organization down this AI journey?
Focus on your workflow, focus on value. Don't pay attention to what everyone else is doing, because what you have to ensure is that you use AI to make your company better. The other thing that I would say is it's a journey with our employees. I remember when we first started talking about AI 4 years ago, it scared our people.
Yeah,
and
no one likes to
today,
take track.
87% of our employees feel like AI is helping them to be better. Like there's a journey there, but the journey starts with talking to your people.
Yeah, I guess, through companies I've worked for, communications makes a big difference, right? Really in any relationship, whether
That's right.
it's personal or professional.
And I think we're going to have to be okay saying, hey, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where this is going to go, but we need to start taking a few steps in how we leverage the technology.
Yeah. All right, Fran, I know how busy you are at this event, and I really appreciate the time you've taken to sit down with me. So on behalf of, anything else you want to add?
No, thank
okay,
you.
that was good. So on behalf of Fran Katsoudas from Cisco, I'm Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on my next episode of ZKast.